Okay.
Recording is on.
All right. Today is November 15th, 2020. And today we'll continue our discussion on meditation. And so when we started the conversation, he was asking everyone if we've tried it. So I started out, I said I tried the meditation throughout the week and I noticed some differences in myself. I felt less tense, and I've done these kind of practices before, these type of relaxation techniques and yoga. But what I tried this time compared to before was not. I didn't really have a goal. I just thought about just being, or it was just being relaxed and meditate just for it, just no other reason, just
Yeah.
relaxation and meditation. That was the only thing. But yeah.
You know, that really is the key, is not having
Yeah.
a goal.
Yeah.
So we're so acculturated to this capitalism, and you don't do anything unless there's some cost benefit for you. And then everybody's has this idea of, you know, hope and the future and acquisition and building and acquiring. And then this is the opposite. It's not the work of doing, it's the work of undoing, and that's counterintuitive to a lot of people. But it's like everything's been done, everything's been overdone, and we got to start backtracking. We got to start unwinding this beast. And people are like not really in tune with that. That's a new concept entirely. That basically unwinding, undoing, deindustrializing, doing less. But as soon as you say it, it's kind of obvious. It's like, if that's what the world's telling us. We've been orbiting, and everybody wants to saying, the opposite is that things are going wrong. Therefore, we must double down on this bad bet. It's an escalation of commitment. This is like Vietnam. This is a quagmire. The world is being destroyed. What do? Double down. If we keep on, beating this horse, eventually it'll stand up. And this is just like saying, oh, the sanity probably lies in the other direction. And so it's sanity is the work of undoing, and traditionally, far back in ancient sages and stuff, they had a different conception to us. We think we have a completely different narrative that we dust to deity, the Ken Wilber thing, and we every day we're getting closer to God, and we're building this Tower of Babel. And they had the opposite view. They said that we had a golden age, and things used to be great, and then it's all deteriorated since then. The exact opposite to what our Western conception is. And so, if you want to get back to basics and the bare necessities, this is a good place to start. But yeah, so one more thing I'd say on that exercise. So, but you get the difference between meditating, which is basically you sit down almost with a goal. The goal is liberation. So the goal is to give up stuff. The key to liberation is you have to think of it like attachments and all these strings. So you have to cut them off one by one, and then you'll be liberated when Pinocchio's cut all his strings. Now that's meditation. The other sort of exercise of relaxation and mindfulness that I told you about is just emergency relief, just to ground yourself and to stop bleeding energy and just try and recoup some of it. So you can do the exercise again at any time, and you don't have to go through all the rigmarole that I did before. If anybody wants me to do it again now, I'll go through the whole rigmarole. But after a while, you get better and better at it. You don't have to ritualize this long narrative in what you're doing. Eventually, just on one breath, you can just like let the breath go and go, and immediately do all the things that I separated out for you. You can just go straight there. Just go, come to your senses immediately. be in that zone and stay there. It takes a bit of practice to do that, but yeah. Oh, go ahead, James.
Hugh, did you? I only listened to it once, but did you give two separate practices? And one was to do with the phosphenes, and the core of that was the strengthening of that, pulling back the focus, just onto those phosphenes. And the other one was just a body scanning relaxation. Is that right? That there were two?
Yeah, that's right. The one leads into the other one. So you start off with the exercise to prepare for meditation, but meditation is more of a discipline and does seem like you're trying to acquire some goal. So you would generally, if you're really serious about this, set a time aside and do it for a certain amount of time. As you get better at it, you can go longer and longer. But yeah, it's great to meditate in the morning or in the evening, especially kind of supper time when the sun goes down and stuff. And then, but the exercise you can do at any time, just when you notice that your attention's going off, or you got thoughts in your head, or you're depressed or elated, or you get a phone call and somebody goes like it's the boss, and instead of going to pieces, you just get in the zone, you know.
But again, there were two parts to it. One was phosphenes, and that was to strengthen that ability to not get pulled out. And the other one was a scanning muscle relaxation.
Yeah, coming to, so one is to, so in terms of the layered brain, the one is to ground your alien cortex in the five senses, in basically the lower, or the first evolved layers of our brain. So basically just connect to the five senses, and then that stops its, you know, the narrative in your head, and this little critic that keeps on going, this little know-it-all professor that has a kind of running commentary on our lives, like a, you know, sports commentator in a way. And it's to just get that to shut up and just, you know.
And which practice is that? The body scanning?
Yeah. So
and then the other one with the phosphenes?
Then that's meditation. Yeah. So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So then you would sit down and decide, I'm going to meditate for half an hour or something.
Yeah.
And then do that for half an hour. The one is just emergency relief, but meditation, you don't want to look for a result in it. It's just a way of building up energy. Helps a lot if you do it in places that are really quick or peaceful places. And so, you know, you can do it in a church and pretending you're praying or anything like that. And the whole point of meditation is for liberation. So you're building up that energy. Raja Yoga is what it is, and it's building up the energy to break out of the prison. So yeah, I mean, let's put it in the context of a prison yard. Is, you know, when you're interacting with people in the prison yard and stuff, probably the first exercise is useful to stop you getting a shiv in the ribs, or getting punched in the face by some other prisoner in the yard, or by just, you know, the letting the system get to you. And whenever you notice that it's getting to you, you just basically immediately woof. And then that is a relaxation technique. The other meditation is more like building up your strength so you can break the bars of the prison and get out. Yeah. After a while of doing those kind of practices, you build up enough kind of fine energy that you get to a point where you can't get out of the present moment. So at first it starts off where you struggle to keep your attention honed and stay in the present moment. And then eventually you get to a point where you can't break out of the present moment. And then, you know, energy accumulates fast. You have to find ways of venting that energy in a way. And the way to do it is to do practice and, you know, give out some energy. But eventually you get to a stage where you build up so much fine energy that you can get to a point where you start to understand why these guys said the saints and that had halos around their head, because people can see that you've got this radiant energy, and they want to ask you a question. They want to, like, where did you get that from, is what they're trying to ask. And they don't know how to phrase the question. So, but yeah, you can get to a stage where strangers will come up to you in the street and say, I just knew I had to speak to you because, there's something about you. And what it is you've got this, you can see that somebody is radiating energy. And most people are, just on the, like zombies, just about trying to make it through the day. So anybody that looks bright and cheerful, it looks like they've robbed a bank and everybody wants in. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hugh, can I ask a question there? I don't know if it's a bit too far away, but I remember once a fellow I did some meditation with just for a little while. Anyway, I won't go into that. He said, be careful not to meditate in public. He said, because you're effectively shining a light and you'll get energy vampires latch onto you. And so, first of all, I guess, what's your estimation of that? And the second thing is, what's the, if you're in that situation where maybe you are radiating more fine energy than other people are, would you need to do anything to protect yourself? Or I'm just thinking too in terms of conversations that I've had with you where you've experienced people attaching themselves.
So he's absolutely right. If you meditate in public, you will get these energy vampires that will come and feed off you. But the thing is, though, you can't escape it. You have to learn how to deal with those people, because you won't be able to hide it. They will be able to detect that you have something that they want, and even they won't be able to describe what it is. But they might say to their friends, "Oh, Gary is such." I don't know what it is about him, but there's just something that in his company, it just feels so freaking awesome, and what they're saying is they're feeling sattva. So but they don't know the word sattva, and so they can't consciously express what they're feeling. But some people consciously, very few people consciously know what sattva is, and they're evil people. They will come and seek you out. So you've got to deal with them, because you won't be able to avoid them. So you need the skills. You need to develop the skills, but you do have to protect the energy you've got. So here's the thing: it's not all a game of dog eat dog. The opposite applies, right? So if people are on the same page as you, and you meditate with other people, then the energy builds up amazing. Yeah.
It does.
So then, it's very like rowing if you've ever done rowing, say in a cock state or something like that, in a rowing boat. If you all row together, this won't mean much to you unless you've actually done rowing, synchronized rowing in a rowing boat, like Olympic rows. If you're in a boat, when you start off, it's very chaotic, and actually, funny I mentioned this. I probably mentioned it because of Tom Watts. Tom Watts actually mentioned a rowing boat in one of the things I posted, I think, but. He was saying, about the cocks, about the stroke. He's saying, it was a tremendous race. The stroke rode twice as fast as everybody else, which is a rowing joke, because everybody should be in absolute synchrony. But, a lot of these guys, say novitiates in like an ashram, they're all trying to compete with each other, and I'm going to be the Buddha first kind of thing. And then it's completely fucked up, because he's trying to be row twice as fast as the rest of the people in the boat. And the boat's not going to go anywhere until everybody's synchronized. When everybody's synchronized, then if you've ever done rowing, you'll know that they're absolutely magic moments. It's almost like Zen and archery, and everybody gets the stroke perfectly, and it's almost magic. The boat just takes off, and it's just everybody puts in almost effortless effort, and the boat just flies, and it becomes ooh. And then so the opposite applies, that it reinforces if you have people on the same page. But not everybody's on the same page. You see, some people are out for themselves, and so they can be vampires on your energy. But it applies to everybody in daily life. Everybody knows somebody that's a drain on them, and that they, you spend an hour in their company, and for some reason you just feel like you need a nap. They're exhausting, those kind of people, and so it's yeah.
What I was wondering was, I mean, I've come across people who will want to teach you elaborate ways to protect yourself, and weave all sorts of cocoons of light around yourself and suck your aura in so that it's close to your body and all this. And I mean, does it just come down to maintaining some awareness rather than going through these elaborate
yeah, I'm very, very, very wary about this kind of thing, because you see, what they're teaching novitiates is wrong, because the whole thing is really to loosen the bonds of ego and transcend ego. And what by saying all that kind of stuff to somebody, what you're saying is you must guard your energy, and you must put this little cocoon around you and stuff, and all this Ouija kind of things, and it's completely the wrong narrative, because they're reinforcing your ego. They're saying, I have this energy and it's mine, and I'm going to become the Buddha. And it's like, well, you're heading in 180-degree wrong direction. What you should, more and better way of doing it is saying you should share that energy. It's a budget, and you've got it's just like money. There are people that will come and try and steal your money, but it doesn't mean that you can just really be completely beneficent and give all your money away to everybody. And then, so you can't, every time you get $1, you're a saint, so you just give it away immediately. Your life will be fucked that way. Our society works where you have to have some money to survive. And so you've got to do a balance. You can't tell everybody, I'll tell you the way to hoard your money so that nobody will get a penny, is wrong. And also saying, give your energy to everybody, so that you'll be diminished to peppercorn in no time. People will strip you bare if you just free money. So it's exactly the same as money. As you give your energy, you want people to benefit from your energy, but you want to be generous with it. You don't want to hoard it. Otherwise that's makyo right there. But you don't just want to bleed it, and you don't want thieves to take it from you too. So I hope that.
So it still really comes down then to just being aware, basically, the whole time about what's going on, where you're at personally, and where other people are at. So you're sort of, just noticing whether you're having all your energy taken away, or you're feeling completely insecure and you're trying to keep it all to yourself. Is it just fundamentally come back to maintaining a state of awareness?
Yeah, so the very first, as soon as you do the first exercise and you are aware of your embodied presence, you quickly say, oh, this person's draining me. And then the first defense is to just get out of their company, make some polite excuse and get out. Later you can get more sophisticated, and you can sit in somebody's presence, and you can make them give you their energy. In fact, there's an ongoing game with people that know about this, where they'd see who's going to get whose energy. And I've had some conversations with you, Gary, about qi, and particularly in China about qi, and also the sexual thing. In China, there's a cult of having sex with people, but not having an orgasm, so that then you take their chi. If they have the orgasm, you take their chi. So that's the game as it's played, particularly in in the Far East. But the way to actually take, I'll tell you this for free, the way to actually take somebody's energy is silence. So you'll make them run out. You see, nobody likes the silence. So if you're silent for long enough, they'll fill the void with all their nervous energy and speech and stuff like that. But particularly speech is where the energy drains out, and so then that's why they have practices like mauna and silence, and that's why the monastic tradition in the West was, monastic orders would have silence. It's to basically build up this fine energy, and they completely undermined it. Like the Cistercian monks and stuff, they started doing hand signals, which is just talking by another way. So they're bleeding energy doing hand signals. Yeah. You might as well speak, apart from the breath and stuff. But yeah, so they would say it's all prana, and they didn't make a lot of distinction in Hinduism between breath and energy. So prana and shakti, they felt were pretty much the same thing. And so you need breath to speak. So you're giving out energy speaking, and if you could hold in your speech, you're holding in prana. That's yeah.
So, given that it can be good to meditate with other people, and that it's nice to be with people and be a part of something, well, do you think it's okay as long as you're being aware and you meet a nice group, a Buddhist group, a Zen group, some Hindu group, and they're meditating, to join in with them and become part? Now, obviously, the risk is they're going to want you to start doing their whole thing. You know they are, but a lot of Buddhists are fairly easygoing. And if there's someone else who wants to come and meditate, and you just say, "I'm doing my own, I've just got a stripped down thing," but they'll be okay.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. So, yeah, I mean, I've been all over the world to places where I've been to little Indian villages, and at like 2 a.m. they're having, puja for Krishna or whatever. And I just go in there, I don't think these guys had seen a white guy in their whole life. And I just go, sit there and meditate and with them all. And at first they're like, fuck, what the hell? And then after a while they go, some crazy Western tourist who's into Krishna, and they completely forget about you. And then you just, you see, the thing is that sattva is universal. It doesn't matter what it is. So you can go to a cathedral or something like that. Yeah. And I do. I mean, I have a church right next door to me here. It's really a museum, but it's open for the tourists, and we're in lockdown now. So,
yeah, that's right.
I can go to this church, and it's got all this aura of them, and the candles are burning and stuff. And at first they were a little freaked out, saying, who the fuck are you? We're in lockdown. And then they kind of open up, chat to them. They open up and they say, well, you can happily sit in the church for a while. So then they think I'm, religious, and they don't know that I'm risking a lightning bolt every time I go near a church. The great thing about it is, a lot of anarchists and that think they kind of bound. They're not free or liberated, because they think, I can't walk in a church. I'm a militant atheist. I know all the damage the church has done and stuff. And you say, well, then you're not really free, are you? You've got these boundaries of things you can do, and say, get over those. It's like, I'll admit something to you, is I'm the world's most militant atheist, but I'll quite happily pray to Jesus, or pray to God or something, and say, well, why not? You don't believe in God. I say, like, yeah, but if you look at the scientific evidence, you don't have to. To get the benefits of prayer, they've done research, and they said to get the benefits of prayer, you don't have to have faith in God or anything. It's like, right, so pray to Jesus. Why not? And somebody says, why do you pray to Jesus? Jesus doesn't exist. It's bullshit. And you say, yeah, I know, but you get the effects no matter what. So do it. You know? And if you have that attitude, well, then you're really free. If every Christian said, you know, like, say, well, why don't you really have faith in God? Is like, nah, because I don't need it. I can just pretend.
You, in doing that, though, aren't you, in a way, you're sort of rediscovering the genuine spiritual roots before religion kind of took it over and what's the? I'm sorry, I've lost the word. You know, they took it over and codified it and used it. You're sort of, you know, you're rediscovering the fundamental thing.
Well,
is
now
the way
you've bloody given away, Gary. It's like you weren't supposed to say that. You're giving the game away.
No, I've always, because I remember once it was quite a while ago when we were talking, and you had a hard line on religion. I mean, I think it was when I was talking to you about what you'd written in the book, and I said, yeah, but isn't there this other side to it, that at some stage way back, and even now, I feel that there are some very few people who can go into conventional religions, and they can actually, either by accident or because they're exceptional, they can find their way to the kernel of genuine spiritual teaching that's there, and actually, you know, become realized by way of their religion without falling for the dogma and all the rest of it. They can see it that way. They can just see, a bit like you, where they can go into that church and really enjoy it, but not be sucked in by the the shows so much as to feel what's behind there. You know, if you're just getting fine energy there, wow, you know, but most people go in and they entirely miss the point.
Yeah, but
I mean, that was the point I was making, that the religion sure has become something very problematic, but for some people it isn't.
Well, you're absolutely right, but you must quickly backtrack on that for a couple of reasons. One of them is you're wrong if this common core theory of the basically religious scholars. So in the 70s, comparative religion had this thing called the common core theory now, and that was basically saying all religions at their heart are the same. Saying like that has been totally thrown out. It just doesn't hold water. Yeah, I can show you some people that think like you know, Hottentots. It's a bit pejorative to say Hottentots, but the original people in the Cape that don't exist much anymore because they kind of got assimilated or wiped out genocidally. But anyway, they used to be called Hottentots, and they prayed to praying mantis. Basically, in Afrikaans, it's called a Hottentot God, which means Hottentot's God. And it literally was. And so you can't say like, oh, well, praying mantis and Yahweh, it's the same. It's like, really? That's a stretch. So, you know, that doesn't hold water anymore. So you've got to reject that.
Well, what was but I mean, in the case of that particular religion, had they just gone completely strange right from the word go, or was there any actual spiritual basis behind what they were doing? Was there anything sane in it, or did it just start being something?
It's better to say it's insane. It's better to say it's all insane. You see, the thing that I keep on mentioning is that what we're talking about here is not conventional religion, which is just here as you know. The religion conceived of now is religion that is the handmaiden of the state, and it's done for social cohesion and it's done for oppression. So religion done by priests is really to perpetuate a power structure. And so that's, you normally, if you talk against religion, you're talking against that power structure. So if you get beyond that, then you say, well, then there's a religious tradition. And then you say, well, what is it? If there is a God, who gives a shit if there's a God? What's it? Well, it's important in terms of liberation. There's liberation from separation from that God. There's liberation from wrong ideas about that God. So then if you say, well, then there's a destiny, and that's like liberation. Now you're saying that would be enlightenment, a good understanding of that God and absence of misunderstanding. Then you say, well, how do you get to that enlightenment? And then does it matter what train you came in on? If all paths lead to some enlightenment, and then afterwards enlightenment's pretty similar, then who gives a shit? You can be Muslim or Christian, whatever. We'll all wind up in Philippi at the same point eventually. Well, that is not wrong. That's wrong, because I keep on saying that whatever you can come in on, so the trajectory going into realization will determine the trajectory going out. It's like a point of singularity, or it's like going into a black hole. If you come in from the left side, you will go out on the right side. And so if you come into enlightenment or enlightenment experience, and you came in on the Christian train, you're going to come out of that spouting Christianity. And that's not good for anybody. Because you're going to tell people that, this is the way, and follow Jesus and you'll get to this and stuff. And it's like, well, you're going to run straight into all the guys that'll tell you, well, no, pray to a praying mantis and you'll reach enlightenment. And they interpret everything about the enlightenment in terms of stick insects, and they're going to really butt heads with your Jesus interpretation. So
I'm just
enlightenment. It has to be really, really vanilla. So you shouldn't come in on any check. So the purity of it coming in, if you're really agnostic going in, then it'll be purer coming out. It'll be less biased. It'll be less partial coming out.
What about going in if you went in on the Zen train?
Zen is it. Zen is as good as it gets.
Yeah, I thought so.
Zen is negating all of them. Zen is pretty much what I'm saying. It's like if you make any proposition to a Zen Buddhist, so Zen is a very, very pure way of going in. But Zen is a reaction against conventional ecclesiastical Buddhism. So, but it's better in some ways to go in on the resistant train to the dominant culture. So you could just as well come in on Western monasticism.
Yeah.
And that's better because the Western monastic tradition was a counterculture to the ecclesiastic and popular religion that they taught in churches. And so in some ways it was quite heretic. So if you look at, say, the Templar Knights, they were clearly on this heretical path that then they got burnt at the stake for, because it was so heretical. But they were actually right. It's a good way to get to a Christian mystic, but really enlightenment. What it is it's really a Gnostic enlightenment, and in an entirely Christian world that's run by the Pope. You probably can't get to enlightenment by going to church every Sunday and listening to what the bishop has to tell you.
No.
You need to get on something that's rebelling against the culture of the time. And so liberating yourself from that culture is also personal liberation. And if you're lucky, liberation from the human condition and transcending what we are. But that's the best way that's about the best I can do to describe to you that the flavor you come in on is important. Yeah, and you want it to be as neutral as possible, so that it's complete and neutral as possible going out.
Yeah, I suppose that
liberated. Okay, it's quite possible to have an enlightenment and just be partial, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's two things there. One is that I suppose I suppose I'm thinking more of a less common individual who's probably got a better sense of discernment, and so they don't get sucked into the kind of superficial aspects of the religion. But just what you were saying about, if you go in on the Christian trajectory, you'll come out spouting your spirituality in those terms. But when you think about it, anyone who starts to talk about something spiritual, because it actually can't be rendered in language very well or even at all, they've got to talk about it in some manner, which is metaphorical, and it might be in terms of Christian sort of vocabulary, I guess, or Zen or something. They could still be saying exactly the same things, but it's using the sort of language of a particular. I don't think it invalidates it. I mean, if a person's where the action is, kind of thing, they might just be expressing themselves in a different language.
In a way, but I would use this metaphor. So, like, if I tell you, okay, you're a Christian and you came in, you just say, I want to, be the best Christian I can be. I want to become one with God, and whatever the aim of the religion is, how you express it. So then you'd say, okay, I, as your teacher, would say to you as a Christian, I'm going to show you Jesus. And you go, okay, and so basically, and you would build it up and you would prep them for it. And then you'd say, today, we're going to introduce you to Jesus. Are you ready? He says, yes, Master, I've done everything in Christianity. I'm ready to be received by Jesus. And you say, here's Jesus. And you hold up a mirror. And you take the mirror down again and you say, there, you saw Jesus. Now, there are a number of ways to take this. Some people might go like, I've seen Jesus and he looks like you. He looks like you. He's got blood, And then a few people will say, I've got it. The bastard just held up a mirror. And then you see there's a different quality of realization to saying like, oh, I get it now. You just look in the mirror. What you see in the mirror, that's God. And then it's quite another thing to not realize that it was a mirror and start describing yourself in terms of what you look like in a mirror and be completely unaware that this was a mirror trick. Does that make any sense?
Is there a kind of impossible thing going on here where the person who's liable to be awakened has almost got to have something going on in him from the start before he meets anybody or talks to anybody else? If because as you're saying, you could hold up that mirror and well, it's like that Buddhist one about whoever it was, Mark Kasyapa, didn't he just hold up a flower? It just didn't say anything, and this guy in the audience just got it all straight away, and nobody else could really figure out what had gone on, but it just took one moment of silence, and that was it. And he whatever was left of his former self just sort of, faded away.
Yeah, well, there's a Zen
but there had to be
tradition
something. There had to be
that thing exists in everybody. So
Yeah.
you don't have to get to a certain point of development to see it. You can be as deaf as a post, maybe, but there's a tradition that the first person to bring Zen to Japan, I can't remember who it was, Gosan, something, I can't remember. But anyway, the emperor has heard all about Zen and has wanted to find out more about it, so he invited him to Japan. He came to Japan, and then, all the courts assembled to hear about Zen Buddhism, and says, right, are you ready? And they say, go for it. And they think he's going to give a long discourse, and he just takes out a flute and plays one little middle C note, So there, that's Zen. And they went like, slow clap. We think you might have to stay a bit longer and explain more. But you see, some people would have got it straight away and laughed their friggin' heads off. And some people
Well, the question is,
100 years later,
you
go
know,
to the finer essences of Zen, and they still just don't get it. So
I
yeah,
wonder whether the people who get it straight away are probably the only ones who are ever going to get it. You know,
I don't.
to-
I lie awake at night thinking of just this kind of thing. But it's you like enlightenment is like that. What I mentioned last time is if you think of it like those pictures in the Look and Learn magazine, where it's what is this picture, and it's
yeah.
it's a picture of a bull's face, but it's zoomed in so close and from a funny angle, and you when you see it, you can't unsee it. It's basically as soon as you see, it's a bull, you've got it. Then, but some people, they're not going to get it. You just they can look at it and you can explain it and everything, and they're just not going to get it. And some people, you asked before, like how do you know if somebody else is enlightened? And the truth is, if you can't see the bull yourself, it's like saying, well, how do you know somebody else can see the bull in this picture? And maybe they just talk a good line, like Jordan Peterson is a classic example where he's very eloquent and he can talk a good line, and it's pure bullshit and it doesn't hold together. But you kind of have to have already seen the bull to realize he's talking bull about the bull. And so it's only once you've seen the bull that then you can ask somebody. You say like, oh, can you see the bull? Oh yeah, I see the bull. And then you say, okay, well, tell me about it. What's this bit? And he goes, well, that's it's probably its ear, yeah. And then then this would be the horn, and you very soon you can tell this guy's faking it. He can't see the bull.
Well, it comes back to the same thing, though. Really, that the person who person A recognizes person B has got something special, and they're quite sure that they're awakened. But that's probably because person A's already got the seed of that going in them in the first place. Like that was the thing. I remember the first time I saw Jordan Peterson, and I only survived about the first 10 minutes of this guy. There was just something I could not have explained to anyone what the problem was, either in what he was saying or anything else, but there was just something wrong, and that was it. And curiously enough, exactly the same thing happened when Sophie put up those videos about Vaknin. What's his first name? I don't know.
Sam Vaknin, yeah.
There's something wrong. There's just like, I just thought, I don't, it was, I listened to him, but I thought this guy just doesn't sit properly. It's not this, And then I think later on you made some comments about him. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not now.
Yeah, so the way I see those guys is, I mean, particularly like Jordan Peterson, is what they seem to do is they seem to jump to conclusions. So they have something, it seems like they've lain awake at night, and around about 3 a.m. one night, they came to something that they thought was a brilliant illumination. And so for example, like Jordan Peterson, one thing he said was, well, the basis of all mental illness is complexity. And you can kind of see where he's going. He's sat down and thought, when people get overwhelmed with complexity, if you look at people that are suffering from mental problems and they come into a clinic and then they say it's just complication after complication, they're very, very complicated lives. And then he's saying like, well, the essence of mental illness is complication. And then based on that foundation, he'll build a whole temple on top of it. And then he comes and explains the temple to everybody. And you have to look back and see, oh, I understand. I mean, this temple is horseshit. It's built on a wrong foundation. But you have to trace back exactly where he's made the error. And so the same thing was like lobsters. Basically he's come to the concept. The first conception is, somewhere along the line, probably very young, maybe even like 4 years old or something, we make a lot of our philosophy of life is made very young, something like as a toddler even. And so obviously he came to the conclusion that you can't change reality. You can't change life. You can't change society. It's no use being a revolutionary. Basically, we live in a concentration camp. Yes, I get it. But you cannot do anything about that concentration camp.
Yeah.
Basically, we live in Auschwitz. You just have to accept we live in Auschwitz. And then he files that away, and it becomes the bedrock that then he builds this philosophy on. And then, the next thing you know, he's saying, well, why is it a shitty prison yard? And saying, well, it's because there's a hierarchy. And why is there hierarchy? Well, you go all the way back to lobsters. So you can't fight it because it goes that far back. And it's like, and it's all starting to sound a bit wrong because everybody knows, like, we're not really related to lobsters very recently. And there's huge gaps of history where there's not a continuous line of social hierarchy from lobsters to us. I mean, hunter-gatherers didn't have hierarchies. Chimps did, it's very shaky ground, but he gives it all as this very solid edifice that a lot of people will take at face value. But you can see where it came from is that he's made some very firm premises, and then he basically constructs around them.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to see what he's built on all the time, apart from knowing that this house is built on sand. Yeah, but
Well, he's a psychologist.
Well, most psychologists, I think, have come to that conclusion. His conclusion is that you can't change the system.
No.
Therefore,
psychology never says that. That's always psychology's position.
Yeah, but then it leads to terrible conclusions and terrible conduct. So before you know it, and this is the problem with Jordan Peterson is, before you know it, you are participating and reinforcing the system by accepting that you can't change it, by going and saying, well, we've got to make Auschwitz better. By making Auschwitz better, you're making Auschwitz more entrenched and more difficult to remove, and you're making sure that the prisoners have less chance of escaping it. So, yeah, it's the way I see it is that, it's great conception to say the system is wrong and basically that's it. But what I think Jordan Peterson misses is he's thinking in terms of this then acquisition, the same old rhetoric of capitalism and gain and productivity, and he's thinking, okay, how do you win given this game?
Yes.
And then he comes to all these false conclusions, and I'm saying, look, there's a better way. Just give up winning and just do right action. Just do right action. Say, I'm in Auschwitz. Auschwitz is wrong. Now what do I do? He said, I get my meaning to life from working against Auschwitz. But is that going to work? I don't give a fuck if that works. It's Auschwitz. You don't want to work with it. So it's like you can construct a whole persona, a lifestyle, and meaning to life out of working against Auschwitz. You don't have to. You see, that it's so subtle to say, like, Auschwitz is a given. How do I profit? It's like saying, Auschwitz is a given. Don't try and profit. That's how Auschwitz keeps going. Make your life based on being the anti-Auschwitz, being the counterculture against Auschwitz. And it can be a very good life. In fact, a lot better than Jordan Peterson's, because the first thing he can do is check out his anti-anxiety medicines. He doesn't have to go to hospital if he's... He has to have anxiety medicine because of this construction he has that you can't do anything about society, but society is impossible. And the next thing you know, you're popping pills and you wind up in a hospital bed in Russia. I'm sorry to say that.
The most alarming part of that for me with Jordan Peterson is that he's so far gone. He's so on the wrong track that he's still coming out the other side of this bad experience he's had, saying taking loads of benzodiazepines, they're really addictive, Who knew? And you think, mate, you're an academic clinical psychologist. Are you honestly unable to admit to yourself you were popping pills because you like them, because they made you feel better. He's acting as if he didn't know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you see it in terms of ego boundaries, and what the problem is that Jordan Peterson is definitely not an enlightened person. So
No.
he's talking from a point of view of ego and how to preserve your ego. So his narrative is, given the system, then we all egos, then we all go out into this impossible hierarchy, and we have to try and preserve ourselves and preserve our egos. And it doesn't occur to him, or I think the psychiatric professionals in general, is that you probably want to go the other way and get rid of your ego. And so there are a lot of the things that they're saying in terms of mental illness, and what they, the giveaway is disorder. It's like, straight away calling it a disorder, you're saying that you're biased towards order. And so if you think of going the other way, releasing order, not having less of an ego, then you can see that what you really want to be doing is encouraging people in their mental illness. So what the psychiatric profession do is try and pull people back from the brink, whereas they should be going, like, no, go further, go. What they should say is, when they come into the clinic, say, your problem is you're half mad. What you need to do is to basically get completely mad. You need to go the whole hog. If you stop halfway like you are now, it's like being stopped in childbirth. It's basically, you're going to be stillborn. It's basically, you're half born now. You got to complete the birth. So if you nutty, if you've got bipolar disorder, if you're schizophrenic, if you're psychopathic, you're just thinking too small. If you have narcissistic personality disorder, you're just thinking too small. Just become a bit more of a narcissist. Can you develop your narcissism so that it becomes much bigger? But they're thinking the other way. They're thinking, can you put your narcissism in a box and contain it under pressure? And of course, it never works.
Hugh, can I ask it just at that point there? What isn't that the same sort of thing as holding up the mirror to the person and saying, well, this is Jesus I'm introducing, like it, without some kind of context for that? If you're inflating the person, if we're doing what you just said there now, say push them further into their narcissism or whatever they've got, but without what I'm thinking of is the kind of role of the shaman who was giving people the context and meaning for it. It wasn't just in a vacuum, like people who have taken LSD or something, but in the absence of any kind of other information, had a rather strange experience, which in another person who had a bit more context could have been a major sort of awakening. So there, with the psychiatrists that you're talking about, they're not the people who could give their patient any sane context for exacerbating, even if they were exacerbating the person's narcissism. They can't give them the context for it. Can you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but I question that you even need to give them a context. You see, if somebody comes into a clinic and says, like, doctor, I think I'm Jesus, and then what they tend to do is think, okay, well, obviously you're not Jesus, and then try and talk them down from being Jesus. But what they should be saying is like, yeah, you think you're Jesus, but I think you're just thinking too small. I mean, Jesus was a snot. Why don't you think bigger than that? Just that's what they should be doing. But what they're trying to do is put people back into society so that they're productive again. And so if you think you're Jesus, you socially antagonistic, and you unproductive, you basically don't fit in with the hierarchy, and it all goes to pieces. But if you're bigger than Jesus, it's it's like you kind of liberated to the point of ridiculousness. You're not a threat to anybody. At a certain stage,
Yeah.
you're a bigger ego, and you're a threat to society who wants an ego this shape in the slot. But
Yeah.
if you're
Sorry,
in
I
the
realised that
hierarchy, it's like, well, you're not a threat anymore in a way. You're just a loon, a harmless loon.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just thinking the word context I was using there was not really a good word, but anyway.
No,
No.
the shamans have a big cultural advantage because they don't. All these things are not pejorative. So things like schizophrenia and stuff now we pathologize, and you say somebody, well, if you get diagnosed with schizophrenia, that's a very bad diagnosis and a very bad prognosis for the rest of your life. But you see, the shamans didn't have that. They basically say that, well, you have the propensity to shamanism, and you have the propensity to, you have a divine gift, and that's something which I think Western psychologists could also just straight out the box just adopt. Just if somebody comes in and says, instead of treating them as pariahs, you say that it's a gift. That's they do it a little bit. They do it more with autism now. They don't tell you you're autistic, you're fucked.
Yeah, no.
There's a gift in autism. Yeah.
Would you? I don't want to derail the thing you did, but you just brought up autism, and you did put up a post about that a little just recently. Do you mind going in if we go into that a bit, or you don't want to derail the conversation here?
Because that's fine. I think we exhausted it.
Oh no! Sorry. Could I just a couple of last things on meditation? Sort of liberation, awakening is a coup on the alien cortex. It's a dethroning of the alien cortex. Is that what it is, Hugh?
It winds up being that way because really the alien cortex is dominating and seeing things in a box. So it's seeing things in a frame, and it's breaking that frame. Really. Yeah.
Okay. And as my friend here in my top right hand corner was kind of saying, and you're saying, Hugh, it is very dominating, and it's very addictive. The thinking is very addictive. It's a hard habit to break, and I'm guessing that's where the resistance to meditating comes, because it's difficult to commit to doing it. It's very easy to just not do it.
Yes. So it's the seed of our ego, and enlightenment really is to break the frame implies basically annihilating the ego.
Yeah.
So in a way, the ego is annihilated because you just identify with the universe. The ego comes in just monstrously inflated to the point of meaninglessness.
Yeah.
And so but your alien cortex is designed to almost evolved as a self-preservation unit. So it can see this dissolution of the ego coming, and it fights. It fights strongly. It fights to the death, because to it's saying you will die. It's basically like one person that just left the sub recently. she went around and sent emails to everybody saying, Hugh's evil. Hugh's absolutely evil. And what she's saying is that she's saying, like, it's her alien cortex that'll say, he's going to annihilate your alien cortex. You say, yeah, fucking right I am. Give me half a chance, I will. So she's absolutely right. I'm completely evil. But what it is the part of the alien cortex that doesn't want to be annihilated.
Not so.
And but it's the source of everybody's misery while it's not annihilated. It's an imposter that's kind of taken over the household. So it's kind of like the butler has it's almost like Blackadder. Basically it's like Blackadder has taken over the whole regency, and the prince is basically his servant, and so it's all upside down. But Blackadder's ruling the roost, even though he's just the manservant. And it's like that in your head. You know, basically, you have this butler who talks for you, who basically presents itself as if it basically says that he's you, and you know, somebody speaks to you, he answers, and you say, well, you should be saying, why the fuck are you answering? You're the butler. The guy's talking to me. I'm the king.
A last thing then, is there a jumping off point, and as you get close to it, are you standing there on the edge, frightened, and you're just going to have to jump?
Exactly. So yeah, okay. So now I'm going to refer to another person that just left the sub recently. So basically, what a guy like me will do is I'm basically going to try to get everybody out on the ledge. So what this is about liberation. But I tell everybody, I'm not your guru. You got to be your own guru. Because it's very important, because